The number you have dialed is not in service at this time.
Welcome to Spotlight on the Arts. I'm your host, Patrick Cristiano, the publisher of TheaterLife.com, a website for theater buffs in New York City and the Hamptons. We focus on Broadway and off-Broadway theater, as well as theater in the Hamptons and social events. And today I have a guest, an author, a journalist, a reporter for The Star, Tom McMorrow, who goes by the byline T.E. McMorrow, and he has just written a new book, and he's here to talk about that and his life a little bit, I think. Thank you so much for coming, Tom.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
It's really exciting to have you here.
It's great to see you.
Yeah.
It really is. And the website is really fantastic.
Well, thank you. And you've contributed to my website as well, some reviews and things like that over the years. It's been nice to have.
It's been an honor.
It's been nice to have them. And even your father, you know, who recently passed away. I'm really...
Yes. Yeah, Dad passed September 28th. But he passed peacefully and without pain, and I was there. So I'm, you know, and he actually got the first copy of this book. I did Author's Night at the East Hampton Library.
Mm-hmm. This year?
Yes.
Oh.
And Dennis was very kind to give me a copy of the book because they'd gotten it obviously in time to do Author's Night in August, and I took it to Dad and Mom. They were together in Englewood at the Actors Home, the Lillian Booth Actors Home in Englewood. And I signed it to him and to Mom, and he was very proud, and I'm very happy that he got to see it.
Well, I'm sure he was. I'm sure. Your father was a terrific man. I remember very vividly first meeting him, and we were at a luncheon at Sardi's, something for the drama desk, and we just sat and talked about theater, and that's when he first told me about his book. I think we published the first excerpts of his book back
Words
then.
of Wit and Wisdom. Yes, you did.
But let's talk about your book. How did this come to be? There's a kind of a long journey, isn't it?
Yes, there is a backstory. Back in a long time ago, my wife, Carol Davis, who works in theater too, she's a manager. She's working with a wonderful choreographer, dancer now named Cartier Williams. And she had wanted to adapt the Nutcracker for stage with jazz and modern and, you know, sort of infusing different and yet still being respectful to Tchaikovsky's score. So I began working on a treatment for the stage, and there was an agent at RLR, my agency, who suggested, well, why don't you try it as a book? Her name was Jennifer Unter. And I said, well, the first question is, well, if we do a book, who's going to write it? And Jennifer said, well, why don't you write it? So I attacked it, and...
Do you mean you never thought about writing this before?
No.
Until she asked?
Yes.
You were going to let somebody else do it all?
Well, I mean, we were talking about it, and she took what I wrote, and she sold it to HarperCollins.
Wow.
And, yeah, that was a wow. And, but, you know, the publishing business can be very fickle, and it sat on the shelf for years. And it was in 2013, I was working for The Star. I was covering a rather unpleasant, my beat is crime, which is, there's a big jump from here to there.
And theater too, huh?
Yes, but my beat is crime. So I was covering some unpleasant business back in the summer of 2013. And I got a call. Jennifer had left RLR, and Scott Gould, who's now my agent there, called me, and he said, there's a new editor at HarperCollins, and she's in the children's division, Abigail Ranger, and she wants to talk to you. So well, obviously I'm going to give her a call. Right. And she said that she had an African-American artist who had been dying to do a Nutcracker.
That is the most ironic thing, that someone wanted to do Nutcracker as well, and she's...
Yes. And so I began working with Abigail. Abigail asked me, well, there's one thing though, would you be willing to do a rewrite? And obviously the answer was yes, of course I'll do a rewrite. And I began working with Abigail on the book, and she's a wonderful editor. She's no longer with HarperCollins because she moved to the West Coast and they're based here in New York. But she was a wonderful editor to work with. She was very nurturing as an editor, which is so important. She's not dictating, she's not telling you what it has to. And we worked together, and James, you know, working with James's ideas.
Well,
so
that's James Ransom, right?
Yes, James Ransom.
Who was Coretta Scott King's illustrator.
He won this Coretta Scott King Award.
What is the Coretta Scott King Award?
It's an award for illustrator of children's books, but working with him and his ideas and Abigail's ideas, we changed the setting of the piece from contemporary to the 1920s, the Harlem Renaissance,
which is the Jazz Age.
Right, the Jazz Age, and it's a very important time in our history. A lot of it, the interesting thing about working on a book like this is there's so much that so much informs the book, and yet you don't see it necessarily. Like, for example, we spoke, Abigail and I, quite a bit about the Harlem Hellcats. This was a group of African-American soldiers who, during World War I, who were put under French leadership, under French command. And unlike the American commanders, who it was a segregated, racist structure to the army in the United States, the French said, hey, great. And they gave them a sense of power, and they put them out in the field, and they performed heroically. And then they returned to the United States. And so that's, you know, we spoke about that. Now, that's not in here, you know, but yet it informs the work. And,
right.
And there's a lot of things like that that inform this piece.
And become subtext in a way.
Yes, subtext. Subtext is very, very important. And when you're writing a children's book, you have to keep that in mind, too, because it's a very different form of writing. It's almost cinematic, because when you turn the page, the picture's telling the story as much as the language. So you have to really think of that, and you have to work with, in your mind, with the illustrator. What is the illustrator going to tell here? And maybe say, I don't need to say that sentence because it's going to be in the picture. You know, so that's a big part of the challenge. As I said, Abigail was wonderful to work with, and but even that, we started that in 2013, and it was originally supposed to be, I think we were supposed to publish in 2015. It got pushed back to 2016 because James's schedule, he's a very, very in-demand illustrator. I mean, his work speaks for itself. He is in demand, so his schedule, his calendar is busy. So we got the fit in, and it was supposed to be 2016, then it was knocked back to 2017 because they need a certain amount of lead time for a Christmas book. So, but now here we are. I mean, it seemed like forever, you know, and now here it is.
And but when you're doing the process, how does it work? Do you get the illustrations ahead of time? Does he give you a whole section of illustrations and then you?
No, not in this case. I mean, it can work like that. It can work in many different ways. In this case, I wrote the text, working with Abigail, and Abigail very specifically would say, well, I think that maybe the illustration will show that. And we would go back and forth. There's a moment, for example, I think we all have an idea of the Nutcracker story, where the mouse army, where an ornament breaks. And I had crash, I'd written crash, and we talked about it, maybe the picture will tell, and we took it out. But then when I saw the picture, finally. I said, no, Crash needs to be in there, and we put it back in, Crash. One thing also that I did do with this, with the Nutcracker in Harlem, originally I had worked primarily from the musical score, from Tchaikovsky's work, and really listened to it over and over again, and tried to let that guide me. With this version, I decided to go back to E.T.A. Hoffmann and get a sense of E.T.A. Hoffmann's original. Now, E.T.A. Hoffmann is German. He's writing in the 1840s. It's like grim fairy tales time. You know, it's very dark. But there were interesting things that I pulled from Hoffmann's original for the book. For example, we all know in the film The Wizard of Oz,
right?
Dorothy, at the end of the movie, she wakes up and she's in her bed, and she talks to her parents about, oh, but you were there, and you were there, and you were there. Yeah. The interesting thing is that ending is not the ending that Baum wrote for The Wizard of Oz. In The Wizard of Oz, the book, Dorothy basically shows up in Kansas. I mean, she's been away. I don't know. She's been someplace. That ending that they used in The Wizard of Oz, the movie, is in fact the ending in The Nutcracker, the original Nutcracker and the Mouse King, now again, you have to remember that the Germanic storytelling is dark, Gothic. In the original, Marie, and that's her name in this version of the Nutcracker and in the original E.T.A. Hoffmann version, Marie gets cut by a piece of glass from the grandfather clock, and she passes out. And so the whole dream that puts a very dark.
Wow. Yes.
Yes.
But you don't do that.
No, we're not going to get that dark. But I did use that ending where she wakes up in bed and she says, "Did I miss Christmas?" And her mother says, "No." But I liked doing that, bringing that ending back, and I tried to do that in different portions of the book, trying to balance what everybody knows from the ballet and a little bit of E.T.A. Hoffmann.
That's very cool.
Thank you. It was fun.
You know, why don't we show some of the, can we pull in tight on the book and show a few of the pictures that Mr. Ransom has done? And we'll, afterwards, maybe you'll read a little bit.
Yes, that would be, I would love to do that.
Of the book for us.
I mean,
you know, I read this in bed a few weeks ago when we were originally going to come on the show.
Yes.
So
yes.
It was delightful. And
yes. Well, remember what I told you, because you.
I didn't know that. And I know it's something you've informed me in something.
No, but the part about singing.
Oh.
Yes. Because you were saying, well, and in the book, it's everybody can sing. We all have a voice in us, you know.
Yeah, I've been since asked if I would sing in something, so I said yes.
Oh, good. Okay, because that's the answer.
Well, let's show. Just can we show a few pictures?
Sure.
Which camera do you want us to zoom in on? Over here. So let's just.
Okay, which one?
Over here.
Over here. Okay. Let's see. Why don't we start with? I guess they call that the frontispiece, the first image that you see in the book.
Which is, this is her home?
Yes. It's in the Sugar Hill section of Harlem. I worked as a stagehand many years ago for Dance Theater of Harlem, and that was up on 152nd Street, 154th, I forget. And across the street there was a mansion, actually, and it kind of reminds me of this house because there were lovely homes. This is the party scene, the very beginning of the book, and we see Marie is
coming down the stairs. Is that her?
Well, she's a little shy.
She looks shy.
Yes, she's a little bit shy, and
when you hold them, let's go back to the party.
Sure.
You're going to hold it just a little bit longer.
Longer?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think they got it quite.
Okay.
Just hold it there just
sure,
for a
of
second.
course.
This
You
is the
see
party
Marie.
scene.
and you see Marie on the stairs.
In the pink. Marie's in the pink.
Yes, and you see that she is a little shy.
Uh-huh.
And everyone's singing, but Marie doesn't join in because Marie is afraid she can't sing.
I know. Me and Marie are
It's
similar.
Patrick and Marie both have the common fear, and me too, actually, which is why I found. So, so here's Uncle Cab, who's based loosely on Cab Calloway.
You want to show him?
Yes. Although he looks a little like James Ransom, I want to say.
Which one is Uncle Cab?
Uncle
okay,
Cab
the one with the bat,
looks a
the gift.
little bit like James Ransom.
Really?
Yes. But here he's presenting the gifts, the toy soldiers to Frederick, and the Nutcracker doll, Nutcracker, to Marie. And
let's because I don't know how much.
Sure.
What are you going to read?
Towards the end.
Let's read, and then
Okay.
show more pictures if we have time, because I don't want to run out of time without you reading.
Okay.
And then we can come back and show some of the pictures, which would be
Okay,
cool.
yeah, here's, she falls asleep under the tree. So now she's sleeping, and when we turn the page, it's the moon is out, and it's more of a sort of a ghost story all of a sudden. You know, we go, and all of a sudden the glass ornaments at the top of the tree, the glass birds, which are her mother's favorite ornament, she thinks they're moving, and yes, they are. They're singing and flying around. And then the soldiers, the toy soldiers and the dolls all dance.
Okay, show us that one then.
Yes.
Let's see. Can we see this too? Is this the toy soldiers dancing with the
Yes, with the dolls. And then there is a crash. And it is the mouse army advancing on the party. So here's the mouse army led by the mouse general with, you know, many medals on his chest. And the Nutcracker picks up his drum and starts playing his drum, dum diddy dum 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 dee dum. And the soldiers fall in, and the mouse army runs away, all except the general. The general, this whole time, has had his eyes on some sweet potato pie. And he says, "I want sweet potato pie!" And he charges the Nutcracker, knocks him down, the drum rolls away, and now the mouse army is advancing again.
So
And-
leave it.
Sure.
This is the mouse army advancing.
And I'll read this page. Let me read this page.
Okay.
As I said, "I want sweet potato pie," the general shouted. He ran, jumped, and knocked the Nutcracker down. The drum fell to the ground. When the drumming stopped, so did the toy soldiers. The mouse army advanced again. "Charge!" the mouse general commanded. What could Marie do? And we asked that question, and we turned the page. Just the fun thing about writing children's books. Here's what Marie could do. She picks up the drum, and she starts playing, and she leads the mouse army, the soldiers against the mouse army. She picked up the drum and put the strap over her neck. Dum-diddy-dum. The mouse army stopped, turned, and ran away. The general glared, but Marie kept drumming until he too fled. As the mice ran, they began to shrink, getting smaller and smaller. The toy soldiers chased the mice through a hole in the wall and into the snow outside. And then we see Marie with the Nutcracker, and they have a little dance.
Oh, let's leave it there. That's
Sure.
Marie and the Nutcracker.
And then we turn the page to that ending that we were talking about.
Well, let's save the ending. I have to get the book to see the ending now. You know, I don't know.
Have to buy the book.
That's up to you. No, let's give you on it.
Yeah, okay. I think a little mystery.
A little mystery?
A little mystery is good. A little mystery.
Well, if you don't know about the Nutcracker, but if you do know the Nutcracker, you may know the ending already, right?
Right. Except that remember, here Marie is waking up in bed.
Right.
Okay.
Now, this is out now, but was this designed for a Christmas release, even though it's come out now?
Yes, they actually, for Christmas books, I mean, it's my first go-round, so it's all new to me, but apparently they actually do release in late September, early October, I guess, to sort of build up momentum for the piece. We've received wonderful reviews that we got from Kirkus. We received a
What
star.
is Kirkus?
Kirkus, it's a group that reviews books of all kinds. And librarians rely on it a lot, and people in the business rely on it. And Kirkus gave us a starred review, which means that they consider it a book of special merit, of exceptional merit. We received a wonderful review from Publishers Weekly, a wonderful review from the East Hampton Star, and several others. And it's been put on lists of books to watch for. So that's all very exciting. And as I said, for me, it's a first time, and you know, it's a fun trip. You know, it really is. It is fun.
So when did the Star review it?
A few weeks ago.
Yeah, do you remember the issue?
I don't remember the issue.
I mean, can our viewers go up to the Star and archives and find that?
Oh, absolutely. You can go online.
What would they do?
Judy DeMilo wrote the review, and
so Judy DeMilo, and you Google Judy DeMilo or the Nutcracker in Harlem.
I think you could do both, and it should take you to the review. Or if you go to the East Hampton Star website, and they have the arts. They have a section that you can click on, and it should take you to books, and then you can find it.
And then there'll be reviews of books under there, and you can get a review of Tom's book there.
Yes.
Now, if someone wanted to buy it for their children or a gift for something, they'd find it. We're on Amazon, I take it?
You could go to Amazon, you can go to HarperCollins, you can go to Barnes & Noble, you can go to your local bookstore. It's I don't know if it's here in East Hampton yet, but they've ordered. I had the wonderful experience of, I was making some calls to try to promote the book,
Of course.
and I called the New York Public Library. This is a couple of weeks ago. And I called the main branch. The Harlem branch, I've already visited them. They were getting it. But I called the main branch on 42nd Street, and they have a wonderful children's room. Just, sort of like the wonderful room that Alec Baldwin funded at the East Hampton Library. That beautiful children's room.
It's
really
gorgeous.
Incredible. It is. And I would be remiss not to mention the East Hampton Library because Dennis, Alexandria, they were so supportive, having me in for Authors Night and having me do the next day with the Children's Fair, which is really wonderful because you get, children are the toughest critics, and you get to see the children handle the book and how they react, and that was a really wonderful experience.
What do you think? Do you think we could show some of those pictures or not of the children at the Children's Fair handling the book? Let's.
Yeah. Because they really are cool.
Okay. These are pictures you took, though,
yes.
right? These are Tom's pictures of the children with his book at the Children's Fair. Okay.
And my favorite couple in the sequence is the mother getting down on her knees and reading the book to her daughter, and her daughter is reacting. And this is like wonderful for me. I'm watching this, and the mother read the first few pages, and then she closed the book, and she said, "Do you want to get this book?"
Do you want to read was what she was saying, right? Do you want to learn to read?
Yeah, no, but the daughter really loved it.
She liked your book too, yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Those are terrific. Those are really terrific.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun taking them, and it was a lot of fun. Authors Night was great because it's the first chance to talk about the book, to see people react to it, but really watching children with the book is what it's all about. Because it's really about talking to children, and children are so important, obviously. They are our future, and one of the things that I was particularly proud of with this book is that Marie picks up the drum, and Marie leads the soldiers. That you can pick up the drum and you can lead, that we all can lead, and I think that's an important thing, especially in the world we're in today.
It's a never-ending today, isn't it?
It's a never-ending
Yeah.
today.
So what are the? Do you have some new projects on the horizon that you're?
I'm my agent saying, write something.
Do you have anything that you?
Scott Gould now at RLR is telling me to write. There are 3 different things that I'm playing with. One obviously is another children's book, and there's a certain direction I want to go in. The second.
You don't want to talk about it?
Well, sure.
I mean, we have a couple of minutes.
I want to do a detective story.
For children?
Yes. Well, after all, I mean, I spend my life covering crime.
Ah.
At some point, I mean, we have to connect the two. A detective, Doggus McGee. Doggus McGee is a bulldog. And
Okay.
He's a good detective.
So it'd be about a bulldog?
Yes.
Oh, how cool.
Yes,
I love dogs.
Yes, yes. It was the bulldog and the French poodle, and it's just, you know. The second idea is a sports book, because back in the 1960s, it's funny, because you know my dad through theater.
Right.
You knew him through theater and through Drama Desk, and he was instrumental in helping Drama Desk advance. But for me, as a kid, it was about sports, because he was the sports editor at Movietone News, and then he did films for the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I used to get these, he would give me his press passes, and I would go to Shea Stadium and watch the Mets. I was 12, 13 years old. I'd go to the stadium every day in the summer, you know, when I wasn't at camp. And I began forming these associations because I'd wait for the ball players after the game. They were my idols, my gods. And I got to know the ball players of that 1969 Mets team. We're coming up to the 50th anniversary.
So we're running out of time, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
So can you wind this up quick?
Let's wind this up. So basically the idea is to revisit that 1969 team, to revisit that era, because it was such a turning point in American history, and in sports too. And the third idea is a cookbook. I have somebody.
We're out of time.
Oops, that's it.
Sorry.
Sorry. Tune in next time.
Thank you so much for coming.
Well, listen,
Lots of luck with you.